Do you remember the rom-com movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? Don't worry, if you're not a millennial like me, I'll give you the highlights and the recap. It was Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey at their prime going for rom-com gold. And Kate Hudson was this character, Andy. She was super chic and cool and the ultimate tom girl, and she was given a task. She was working for a magazine that she had to find the guy because she was so hot to trot, and she had to intentionally make him break up with her with the things she was doing, and she was documenting it. Now, nobody's operating like that. Nobody's going out and saying, "I need to be so awful that you are going to want to run for the hills." But I'm gonna break things down for you today and share with you the top 10 most common ways that you as a business owner might be losing your customers unintentionally. How to lose a customer in 10 minutes, maybe even be 10 seconds. And the reason I bring this up is because I just experienced this past week. We just bought a house in Colorado Springs, and it's an older home and the back deck is falling apart. And I will tell you, the first conversation we had with the company, they said, "Well, you both need to be there. You both need to come to our showroom and touch and feel the materials." This is a 7x8 platform, folks. It already has a nice example in the front. And they basically said, "We hear you're saying, Lauren, that you are the decision maker and you are going to be available. But really, your husband needs to be there with you. And he needs to make these decisions with you because you just can't be trusted, little lady, on your own making these decisions." And I was talking to the other debt company today about this, and he just shook his head and said, "Where does this come from?" And I said, "I bet there's a sales training out there that is teaching these companies and these salespeople how to walk people through this process of these highly ticketed emotional decisions." All it came off was extremely condescending and a clear ick factor on my part. So we will probably be going with the other company because they were reasonable, they listened, and they didn't need both of us to make a decision. But let's get into it and let's talk about the 10 ways that you might be saying no to business and what you can say instead. So here is the first one: leading with the pitch instead of the problem. I hear this all the time because I am in pitch competitions. I listen to other businesses. I hear what they're putting out there. And so much of this pitch, the energy around it is just oozing with desperation of, "Please pick me, please pick me, please pick me." And really what the pitch is saying is, "This is what I do. This is what I'm offering." And it doesn't speak to the unique problem that the potential customer or company is experiencing. And this was highlighted so much at the NGLCC conference that I just went to from corporates who are booking business. They said, "You need to do your research. You need to understand what our pain points are and how you are uniquely positioned to help us with that problem." It's not about being the Swiss Army knife and doing all things or pitching people of the razzle dazzle, because all that comes off with is that you're selling, that you are trying to just broadcast me, instead of we. French, yes, oui, yes, yes. We need to bring both sides of the table. I need to be looking to understand you and your needs and see how we might offer a new solution. Number two, and I am really guilty of this, so I'm going to take this with a big old healthy dose of absorption, which is over explaining the price. You ever do this where you say, "Well, our prices are this for this people. We could be more flexible and do this, and we're happy to work with your budget." What you have immediately started communicating is that your price isn't firm and you don't back up the value. So when we start to get a little squirmy wormy, that is what is absorbed on the other end from the prospective client and customer. So before you get into a conversation, make sure that you are firm on your pricing list because you've done your homework of what is the range that either the project is going to start at, what are some project or package deals that you can do in tiered pricing, but make sure that you can truly roll your shoulders back, take a deep breath, and own your price and what is included in that price. Because as soon as you start to negotiate without the client or potential client asking for it, you're showing, "Oh, I don't believe in this price. I'm just going to come back off of it." And you're either going to signal that you're insecure with the pricing or that you're not really sure what your pricing model is. Now, number three, this is really common with people who like to script their sales approach. So throughout the script, because you need to be listening and absorbing what the question is that the customer is asking. So number 3 is this is when you go into like your boilerplate media points of you're answering something they've never asked you about. One trick you can do is to just repeat back in their words, in your words, what they've asked you. So if they're asking, I'm wondering if there's a way that we could push this back to 90 days. And you start talking about the urgency that they need to start now, 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 rather than say, I'm curious, what I'm hearing is that you want to push this back in 3 months. I just want to understand what's your concern about this or how I can best answer this because we can move the timeline. I just want to better understand the position that you're in. We're creating empathy by creating shared understanding versus it being about our agenda. You sensing the theme right now? Number 4 is going vague when they're asking for specifics. Now, this usually shows up when we are pitching above our weight, when we're trying to seem smarter, we're using a lot of buzzwords. So if we can't fully explain what we're talking about in very specific language, we start to punt all over the place. And we actually think we're sounding smarter, but we're not really coming across that way. So another way that you can do this is to slow it down. You can use the tip before, which is to ask a clarifying question or to summarize what they're asking for. And here's the thing, if you don't know the answer, you can get back to them. Now, you might be in a high pressure sales position, but the worst thing you can do at this moment is to either start talking off to the clouds or give bad information. So if you don't know, put a pin in it and say, you know what, can I get back to you on that? Let me get my colleague who's actually more specialized or has more expertise in that. I want to bring them in or connect you with them on another call. That is totally fine. And if you're getting a push and push and push to answer it, just stay firm on that because the worst thing you can do is to break the trust by either not answering the question or answering it wrong. So you can buy yourself some time by bringing in colleagues or giving yourself more time in a follow-up conversation to do more research. The 5th one is making it about you, making the close about you, not about them. If you start doing this high pressure urgency close, which I've seen a lot of coaches do, they're being taught to do this of, "Oh, what's it going to cost you if you don't sign with me today?" You are making it about you and your close rate and the money coming into your bank account versus it being the value that you are going to be presenting to your potential customer and client. The thing is you don't know all the backstory going on. You don't know the financial situation. You don't know the decision-making process. Like when you're selling and pitching to corporate, these these relationships take anywhere from six months to 6 years to develop. And if you start to do this, well, I need an answer now. I need you to move forward now. They're like, cool story, bro. That's not how we work. So if you are pushing your agenda and pushing your process and not acknowledging what is important and what is the process for the other client or the customer or the company, then you have missed the mark and you've made it all about you. Number 6. Do you have a tendency of filling in every silence? Did that make you want to squirm? I do this a lot when I teach because when we feel that gap, that silence, we have this urge to fill it, to keep talking, to go, 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 go. And it's actually an interrogation technique and it's a coaching technique because if we're not aware of it, we're not breathing and taking our time, then we are going to fill it with all these extraneous details. And it's either going to create kind of an annoyance on the other side, or it's going to read as being insecure or as being uncomfortable or as being way too talkative and annoying. Either way, it's not a good skill to have. It's not a good tactic. So when in doubt, wait it out. Sit on your hands and count to yourself for 7 seconds. Take your time. Because here's the thing, the person on the other end isn't comfortable with it. They're going to fill the silence. And you might get even more information than you thought you would without having to ask a question. All right, number 7, being defensive about objection. So let's say that you've done your razzle dazzle, you've had your conversation, you've walked through your service offerings and products, and someone pushes back and says, we do that in house. And you get defensive and say, well, they're not me. And what makes them special? And blah, 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 blah. You have immediately shown your cards and shown your ass. So the best thing you can do is to take a breath, maybe wait a little longer, like 5 to 7 seconds, and then ask a curious question. Oh, I'm curious how long you've been working with them and where are the areas that they're servicing your company in, or what are they doing for what's working, what's not? You need to build rapport before you can start going in there with a wrecking ball. And what I've found is that the more that you can celebrate what's working for people, you can see the spaces and the wiggle room where people need more support. But if you go in there with a critical lens and you're checking off all the areas that they're lacking in or all their deficiencies, that's only going to do one thing. It's going to lead to defensiveness and it's going to break down the relationship. So get your stuff in check, take a breath, and stay curious because relationships are a long game. It's not about being right and being transactional and closing the deal in that moment. If you go hard like a bulldozer, that's what you're going to be remembered for. And nobody really wants to be in business with a bulldozer unless you have a construction company. But even then, people don't want to work with jerks. All right, number 8, promising more than the conversation earned. I used to be very guilty of this when I first started my business, probably the first 5 years, to be honest, where I would have an initial conversation or I'd have an initial session or we'd do an initial training and I would start to offer freebies, value adds without being asked. Now, do you know what that does? It creates a power dynamic where the other person is just in receive mode. They don't have any skin in the game, and I'm going to keep giving the milk away for free. They don't have to buy the cow. You heard that in dating, but not. It's similar, but it really is in the same vein. If I'm constantly giving without being asked, why would someone ever pay for it? Why would they ever request anything? Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be generous and over exceed your delivery in a way that brings delight. People like to be surprised in a positive way. But if you are coming at it from an energy of having to constantly prove yourself, that's going to read off as desperate. And it's also going to cheapen your brand a bit. So look at what you're promising versus what's being asked of you in the conversation and make sure that you can deliver on it because the worst thing you can do is overpromise and underdeliver. Now, number 9, is forgetting to ask for the business. Let's say we've had this lovely conversation. We've talked about all the great things we can do together. And then there's no call to action. There's no follow up. There's no ask of, and how do you see this fitting in with your business? Or do you see a need to bring us in areas? Or I'm curious what your ideas are and how we can work together in the future. If we don't ask, we know our answer. We're waiting for them to come up with a solution on how they can basically build the pathway forward for us within their company. So be inquisitive, be curious, be a little chill, but also ask. Just ask. Is there an interest? Is there a need here? Then we're going to know. And if the answer is no, who else might they know that can give us some more aligned business or referrals? And then number 10, the deal is dead when there is no follow up at all. And I have to say, I've been very guilty of this too, because I assume if you're interested, you're just going to let me know, right? You're going to find me, you're going to Google search me, you're going to send me an email, you're going to schedule a time, and you're going to book my business. And that is not how it works. We have to continuously follow up with people and let them know, hey, we're here. We got to invite them to things. We got to see them at conferences. We've got to touch base with them. We have to schedule follow up meetings because guess what? Everybody's busy. Everyone is super busy. And we are one of many people that are trying to get face time and space and resources. So the easier and more pleasant we are to work with, people actually look forward to connecting with us. But make sure that you have a plan to touch base with people on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, but definitely do not go longer than a year before checking in with someone because everyone's needs change. Now, it doesn't need to be a full court press, and I don't suggest you do that. But there are ways that you can create events that are lighter touch, lower risk, lesser stakes to bring people in and just let them know, hey, this is what I'm working on. Are you and your colleagues interested? Or what's going on with X project? Haven't heard from you a bit. Just want to see how your summer vacation went. There are plenty of ways to do that without being super pushy. So I hope that these 10 ways to lose a client are no longer going to be the reason that you don't have business. I hope that I've given you some ideas that you can revamp how you show up, what you're saying, how you can renegotiate your selling proposition, and really just own your space and gain your confidence because Kate Hudson might have done it intentionally, but there's now no excuse for you to be losing business unintentionally. Y'all keep being awesome. Check you next time.